Hey, welcome. It's nice to have you here. And got a couple of announcements. First announcement is that I'm renaming the meeting. It's previously Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness, but I'm going to simplify it and maybe clarify it. It's now titled Relax into Wholeness, because I think that wholeness really captures the essence of what it is that we really want. If you consider what you want in life, what is it that you want? You want peace, you want happiness, you want freedom, contentment, all of these things, abundance. I think wholeness is really summarizes all of that. If you take a moment to reflect on wholeness, if you observe in your direct experience wholeness, if you were to at least imagine wholeness, or just take a moment to let go and allow wholeness to emerge, just notice that it satisfies everything that you really want. So the meeting is now renamed Relax into Wholeness, because we can achieve wholeness, which is what we want, not by straining and effort and trying to achieve something in the future, but by relaxing into it presently, because this is where it's found. If we're looking for it at some other point in the future, then we'll never actually arrive there. We'll always be chasing after it. And what we want is here now. It has to be, because if it wasn't, then we would never find it. If it's in the future, we'll never get there, because it's always out in front of us. It's like a mirage. You keep chasing after it, but you'll never actually arrive there. So it has to be here now. It's the only place that it can be found. It's the only place that it's ever possible for it to be. So to relax into wholeness is the key. So that's the first announcement. The second announcement is that I'm going to, starting today, I'm going to try something a little bit different, a little bit experimental, with the intention that it will give better results to you. So we're going to be doing some practical direct exploration that is intended to help you to connect to this wholeness, so that you can begin to normalize that in your life, to habituate to that. And I'll explain that in a little bit more detail momentarily. But the reason I mention it up front is that it will be ideal if you can have a good environment in which to do practical exploration, one in which you can feel relatively safe and where you can relax. Ideally, you would not be doing it on your bed unless you're sitting upright, but not lying down on the bed, because I don't want you to fall asleep, or you don't want you to fall asleep, because that won't give you the best experience. Because you fall asleep plenty of times in your life, and while that's has its benefits, notice that it doesn't actually help you to produce change in your life, at least not the way you normally do it. So we want to actually remain awake for the practical exploration, but we want to also be very relaxed, as deeply relaxed as possible. So whatever that means for you, if you can have a good setup for that, that would be optimal. Of course, if you don't have an optimal setup, you make do with whatever you have, and that's better than nothing. But figure out what works best for you. So if you can sit upright and be very deeply relaxed, then that's great. I mean, sitting upright has many benefits because, among other things, you're less likely to fall asleep. Um, but for many people, sitting upright can be challenging. So then you have other options, and whatever works for you, that's again the least likely to cause you to fall asleep. So for some people, that might mean lying down on a firm surface, probably not something too hard, like if a concrete slab would probably be too hard, um, but a floor with a carpet or a rug or a yoga mat or something like that would probably be good for most people, because if it's not too soft, you're less likely to fall asleep. So, those are your just things to consider. Also, if you can arrange to be uninterrupted, that would be, again, optimal, because that's going to help you to feel more safe, and it'll be easier for you to relax more deeply that way. But again, those are optimal conditions. If you can't arrange for that, then you make do with what you have. So with that said, now those are preliminaries. That's the preliminaries to the preliminaries, and now we'll be in the preliminaries. So what is the intention of this meeting? What are the benefits, and how can you best receive those benefits? So the intention is to support self-realization. And as I've pointed out, self-realization is your birthright. I mean, if you just think about it for half a second, it should be obvious. Because what is self-realization? It means to actually realize yourself, to know who you are. Don't you think you should know who you are? I mean, doesn't that seem like something that everybody should know? I mean, isn't that kind of fundamental? If you don't know who you are, then what on earth are you doing? You don't know whether what you're doing is good or bad, productive, unproductive, constructive, destructive. You don't know anything if you don't know who you are, because everything hinges on that. We might have plenty of opinions, ideas, and fantasies about who we are, but do we actually know who we are? And of course, the majority do not. The overwhelming majority do not. So you don't want to be like the majority. You want to actually know who you are, because that is, as I this will be somewhat repetitive. That's fundamental. Like, that is the foundation for everything, because without that, you're lost. You're blind, you're wandering around in the dark, and you have no idea what's what. You don't know if you're moving in a good direction or a bad direction. You have no idea. You don't know whether what you're doing is actually in your best interest or not. If you think about it, you could probably, it doesn't take a lot of reflection to notice that many of the things that you thought were good turned out not to be so good. Maybe some of the things that you thought were bad turned out to be good, maybe. So what you think in the moment is not usually very helpful, because what you think in the moment is usually based on delusion, or you could say lack of sufficient awareness of who you are. So self-realization is foundational. Without it, you're just blind, wandering in the dark. So that's the main aim. What are the benefits? Well, I've already kind of hinted at it. I mean, if you know who you are, then you have a foundation. You have a way to orient yourself. You know whether what you're doing is actually in your best interest or not. You know where you're going. You know where you want to go. Everything stems from knowing who you are. And so it's all benefits actually come from that. True health emerges from that, because if you think about it, what are the number one cause of poor health is distress, uncontrolled distress. And almost everybody is suffering from a large amount of unchecked distress, and it's just they're hemorrhaging. There's no hope for them, because They don't know who they are. So when you know who you are, then you have the ability to actually begin to have what I've been recently referring to as calm command. I mean, think about how nice that would be to actually have such calm and command every moment of your life, that whatever the circumstances are, whatever's happening externally and apparently, you have an inner calm command. So that's the opposite of distress. Distress is when you feel like you're a victim, that you don't have any control, you're powerless in the situation, and bad things may be happening to you. But when you have calm command, which comes from knowing who you are, then you can check all the distress finally. You finally say, okay, I know who I am, I know where I'm going, I know what is necessary. Whatever's happening externally, I can deal with that. So these are enormous benefits that emerge from self-realization, because again, with that calm command, checking the distress, so health improves, your relationships improve, all the unnecessary conflict, all of the inner turmoil, all of the unnecessary wrestling with all of the guilt and shame and worry and fear and anxiety and all those things. Finally, you have some stability, a foundation from which you can function that allows you to begin to actually deal with all of that in a productive, healthy way. So those are some of the benefits. I could go on all day, but I won't, because the benefits are endless. So how can you make the best use of this so that you can receive the benefits? Well, it's in the title, Relax into Wholeness. So the relaxation is key. And today we're going to take that a little bit further to actually clarify that in a practical sense, because while the verbal instructions are useful, what is most necessary is the practical, direct application. And even though I have encouraged people to explore that directly through the meetings, to continually be relaxing actively, I suspect most people are not actually doing that. Maybe because they don't fully understand how to do that. And so it will be more of a guided experience starting today. So the format is going to be this. We're going to do a guided practical exploration that will give you the direct experience, that will help you to know what is the practice, what can you do, how can you benefit yourself, so that you actually have that understanding directly. And then we'll have a little bit of a discussion that will clarify some points that you can actually then start to recognize from your own direct experience. So let's start the practical exploration. So you want to be comfortable as you can reasonably be without falling asleep. So that might not be perfect comfort, because you got a lot of stuff that you're holding on to, but we're gonna clarify that. But you want to start out with some, set yourself up for success. So I've already kind of talked about, you figure out what that's going to be for you. Ideally, don't fall asleep. But you don't want to be, bolt upright on a concrete floor if that's really uncomfortable for you, because that will be unnecessarily challenging. If you're going to lie down, I recommend that you try bending the knees, putting the feet on the floor. Again, I don't recommend that you lie down on a bed, because you're just going to fall asleep. Let's be honest about it. So if you're going to lie down, for most people, I would recommend you lie down on the floor with some small amount of padding to make it reasonably comfortable, but not like a cloud that you're going to fall asleep on. And in that case, I recommend you explore the possibility of bending the knees, feet on the floor. It's going to do a couple of things. One, again, it's going to reduce the likelihood of you falling asleep, because if your legs start wobbling around, that might help keep you awake. Another thing is going to help put your pelvis into maybe a more neutral position, which might take some strain out of the pelvis and the whole spine. So that could also be helpful. If you're sitting, then you just find whatever seated position is most comfortable for you. Could be on a chair, could be on the floor, whatever it is. If you are on a chair, explore sitting away from the back of the chair if it's a possibility. Of course, if you're sitting on some kind of ultra cushiony thing or whatever, then that will be very difficult. Some of those things just tend to suck you back, in which case go with it, but just be aware. Because you want to be able to feel yourself as best as possible. So it's not about being numb. You want to have some awareness and sensation of your whole self, including your whole body. Now, if it's comfortable and appropriate, and it's not likely to send you directly off to sleep, then close the eyes. Why? Because it's going to help with the whole exploration. That will hopefully become clear why that would be. Now, we're going to take a moment at first just to notice the breathing. And just allow your breath to be through the nose if possible. If it's not comfortable for you to breathe through the nose, then try to at least breathe through the nose as much as possible. And if you don't seem to be able to breathe through the nose at all, then at least let the breathing through the mouth be very calm as much as possible. But again, ideally through the nose. And just notice that you can relax and allow the breath to happen. Don't try to breathe in what you believe is the right way. Don't try to breathe at all. Just allow the breath to happen. And allow yourself to relax into that breath as much as is possible. Again, it might, some of these things, the deeper relaxation sometimes paradoxically can provoke some anxiety for some people. So you have to moderate your own experience as best you can. But to the best of your ability, just relax and allow the breath. And see if you can start to notice the breath throughout the whole body. So don't try to force it. Don't try to forcefully bring the breath through the whole body by inhaling as much as you possibly can, but just by relaxing and allowing the breath, start to feel into the whole body. Start to see if you can subtly sense the breath moving and opening the whole body. See if you can start to actually feel, starting with the chest and the throat, just allowing that natural breath, the relaxed breath, to open, soften, release these areas of the throat and the chest, the upper back, space between the shoulder blades. And then expand that area of opening, softening, relaxation to include the abdomen and the lower back, and the mouth, the tongue. Then expand that area even more, allowing your pelvic floor to soften, open, relax, the forehead, the eyes and cheeks. Also the inguinal creases, the area between the pelvis and the thighs. These are areas where we tend to hold a lot. But here we want to allow this gentle, natural breathing to just soften and open and relax these areas so that you can really just feel yourself supported, open, relaxed, calm. And remember that you're able to moderate this. So just whatever is comfortable for you. Again, if there's some paradoxical discomfort with relaxing, then you just moderate that and relax and soften only as much as is comfortable for you. Just notice that you can soften and open and relax to some degree. Then continue to allow that area that you can feel softening, relaxing, opening with the breath as the natural breath gently moves into those areas to include the limbs so that you can feel the arms, the legs, the wrists, the ankles, the hands, the feet, the toes, and the fingers. Just allow yourself to relax as deeply as possible. Now, as you're here, can you start to notice the possibility of feeling actually good? Just see if you can open to actually feeling good without any reason. Don't look for a cause. Don't try to figure out what will make you feel good, but can you just open to actually feeling good here? Just for this moment now, could you actually surrender to that? Just actually feeling good. And maybe you find that you can, and then maybe you find that there's some sort of reflexive contraction or something that happens. And if that's the case, that's okay. Don't fight with it. Don't struggle with anything. Don't strain. It's whatever happens is okay. But just then continue to invite the possibility of feeling good without any reason. Don't try to make anything happen. Just open to it. Just allow it. Just invite that possibility and keep opening to it and see how much of that good feeling you can open to. Again, it's without any cause, it's without any reason. It's not because of anything that's happened or anything that you're imagining or anything that will happen. It's not a conditional thing. It's not because of any circumstances. It's just something that's here that you can just open to. Maybe it's as if your whole self was gently smiling just a little bit without you having to necessarily smile, but it's just as if your whole self was gently smiling, that kind of thing. Just a simple, gentle pleasure. And the more that you allow it, maybe you can start to notice that it's actually here for you all the time. It's underneath everything. It's just waiting for you when you finally let go, when you finally relax, when you finally ease into it. Here it is. So this is the first step in a sense. And if you can do just as much, then this is very excellent, is very good. So if you can do that much, you have definitely succeeded. And if possible, we can even take this further. So this is optional. Again, if you've done just that much and to whatever degree, then you've already succeeded. And this next bit is like bonus work. It's more advanced. So just see what happens. Just play with it, open to it as a possibility. So continuing to open to this good feeling, this totally unconditional, uncaused good feeling. From this, just start to allow a playful dance of your imagination. Just allow yourself to imagine whatever might be a natural, joyful expression of this good feeling for you. And here, it's very important. It's just a playful exploration. It is a dance. It's an imagination. It's totally free form. It's not something that you're saying this has to be true in the external world. There's no conditions for it. You don't have to figure out how or anything like that. You don't have to put any demands on yourself that you have to do anything or figure anything out, but just open to a playful, imaginative dance of what this good feeling might express, how it might express, what it might feel like, look like, sound like for you. And it's intentionally open-ended. It's just whatever that might be. Just see what that might be for you. Don't put any demands or limits or anything on it. It's just a playful exploration. Whatever happens, maybe it's just a sound or just a color or just a sense of a movement, or maybe it's a environment, or maybe it's some activity, or maybe it's some people, whatever it is. No matter how small or big or vague or clearly defined it might be, just let it emerge if it emerges. And maybe you'll say, oh, that makes perfect sense. Or maybe it will surprise you. Whatever it is, just allow it. And it's okay if there's nothing. Okay, so that's our first exploration. So we want to be very mindful about how we transition from this exploration. So don't do anything sudden, and feel free to take your time. If you are enjoying this, you're welcome to just continue to stay in this, whatever this is for you. If you would like to keep your eyes closed, you're welcome to keep your eyes closed. But if you do want to transition, or when you want to transition, if you want to open the eyes or change your position, then be very mindful about it and take your time. So at that time, when you're ready, just feel the whole body. Notice the whole body. Scan the whole body from head to toe. Notice, remember the environment that you're in, that your body is in. Remember the posture that you're in, whether you're sitting or lying down. And mindfully make a few slow, gentle movements. And then when and if you would like to open the eyes, do so very slowly. so that it's not a sudden jarring experience. And just be aware of what's happening within yourself. Be aware of the mental activity, especially. So intentionally, this exploration is designed to quiet a lot of the usual filters that are happening that are based on a habitual idea of yourself that tell you who you are and what you're doing and what you should be doing and what's possible and what's not possible and what you need and what you're lacking and what's safe and what's not safe and all these kinds of things. So through this exploration, we relax well below the threshold of all of that normal kind of stuff, the normal filters and noise of the mind and the conditioned habitual identification, so that you're relaxing into that wholeness. You're relaxing into this expanded, more complete, less differentiated self. So there are fewer or possibly no sense of limitations and habitual ideas about yourself and so forth. So you're more free to explore in a more useful, productive way, more in alignment with who you are. So just notice, in contrast, the habitual mental activity and identification and limitations that come back online. And don't dismay about it. Don't stress about it. Don't fight with it. Don't do anything about it other than just notice it. So this is really important. We're just noticing, because in noticing that contrast, then you start to see what's going on. So hopefully you were able to access a good feeling, unconditional, uncaused, just here underneath everything. When you let go sufficiently, here it is. And maybe you're able to relax into that deeply, maybe not so much, maybe you just get a glimpse of it, whatever, it's fine. But hopefully you can notice that to some degree, or you did notice it to some degree. And so just notice that shows you what's possible. So there's this aspect of ourselves, which is wholeness, which is undifferentiated. It's absolutely complete and full of potential, but it is undifferentiated. Therefore, it's not a thing. There's nothing there. You can't say I am this or I am that, because there's no distinguishing between this and that. There's everything existing in full potential. But notice that the delight of that, there's no limitation. So there's no distress, there's no worry, there's no anxiety, there's nothing you need to get, there's nothing you need to get rid of, there's nowhere you need to go. Everything is absolutely perfect, complete, whole. It's total delight. Such a wonderful thing. Then from that, we can start to allow, this is what we did in the exploration, started to allow the natural, authentic, aligned expression of that into its unique, differentiated form, which is you as a differentiated self, right? So you have these two aspects. One is undifferentiated, which is wholeness, which is complete, which is potential, pure potential. And then we have this differentiated self, which is that clearly every one of us is a unique expression. So we have these dual aspects, and they're inseparable. And at the level of that, which is undifferentiated, we're all the same, right? There's no difference there because because there's no difference. So that's always the same. When we access there, we're accessing the same. We're accessing oneness. So at that level, you and I are one. There's not you and me, there's oneness. It's not my oneness and your oneness, it's oneness. You and I emerge from that oneness. You and I, as unique, individuated expressions, emerge from that oneness. So the unique expressions are clearly unique. You and I at this level are not the same, right? We look different, we talk different, we think different, we have different opinions, different experiences, etc., etc. Now, the thing is, each of us, I'm repeating myself, but each of us is unique. How can we know that uniqueness? We can know that uniqueness by accessing it as it emerges from oneness. Because if we're trying out here at the more differentiated level to figure that out, then it's very confusing and overwhelming. And all we tend to do is just compare to one another or to other things, right? We say, well, I'm different than this person and I should be like this and they should be like that. And if only everybody was like this and if only everybody agreed on these things, et cetera, but that doesn't work very well. I mean, it certainly does not give us a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction, because then we're trying to be something else. We're trying to figure out who we are based on some external definition, but it won't ultimately be satisfying because we are, as a unique expression, whatever we are, and our job is to be true to that. So we have to access that as it's emerging in its subtle form. And notice that's what I guided in this exploration, is just notice that it emerges as this wonderful feeling. And then there's some unique expression that's totally aligned with that, which maintains that good feeling, such joy, happiness, as long as you stay true to that. So the more you can stay true to that, the more you stay connected to that fulfillment, that joy, that peace, that contentment, that bliss, that satisfaction. Why? Because that's what's true. That's what's natural. That's who you are. So you have these dual aspects. One is oneness, which is undifferentiated. The other is your unique expression. And you're both. They're inseparable. You can never have one without the other. So when we talk about knowing yourself, it's about knowing your whole self, which means both as oneness, undifferentiated, pure potential, and as your unique expression. You're not going to be happy with only one or the other. You need both. So, and the good news is they go together. You find both together, but then you expand in both directions, in a sense, to include both. So the idea here is that you can notice, as you touch upon this unconditional, uncaused, good feeling that emerges from oneness, then you start to allow this imaginative play where that joy, that bliss, that happiness that's uncaused begins to dance and express. Then something starts to emerge, and that something is you as a unique expression. Now, if we try to rush it, if we're too heavy-handed with it, if we put too many demands on it, then we crush it with all of the habitual identification where we try to, and which is all limitation, where we say, oh, that's impossible. That's just some sort of, crazy dream that could never happen. Here's all the reasons why not. Get real. I don't have enough money. I'm too old. I'm not smart enough. Nobody likes me. Whatever. All the reasons why. It defies all the so-called laws of reality that I believe are true, and so it will never happen. So then we crush it. And notice when you do that, then you're right back into the same old, same old unhappiness, same old frustrations, same old disappointments, because you're not aligned with your whole true self. You're instead trying to be something else, which is always going to be miserable. So what I'm pointing to is that what we want is to actually allow our selves as a unique expression to emerge from its source and to blossom from there. So how can we do this? Well, just with the same basic process, which is you access this, first relax as deeply as possible, touch upon that satisfaction, that good feeling that's uncaused, peace, contentment, freedom. Just notice it. It's here. It's uncaused. You can just keep relaxing more and more deeply into it, and then allow it to dance and play and emerge in its expression through your imagination. And as you do that, then it starts to become more differentiated. It starts to be more defined. It starts to actually be something that you can actually understand, experience, perceive, feel, taste, touch, smell, see in your imagination. And then that imagination actually begins to express through your senses. Because, okay, here's an important point. What I'm talking about is already all that's ever going on. The only problem is that we're doing it in a kind of negative way. What I mean by that is all that we're experiencing is our imagination, the imagination expressing through the senses. And so we believe that it's external because it's all just the imagination, but it's sort of hardened or solidified because it's become so differentiated and it's been repeated so many times that we say, oh, it's real, it's real, it's real, it's external, it's objective, it's out there. But it's all just because we've repeated it so much. It's a play of the imagination, it's a dance of the imagination that has become solidified through the senses, and then there's a perception that is externalized. But just notice that all that you think of as out there, all of the quote unquote real world, the external world, is all known through your senses and your mind, which are all actually internal. And they're all actually always being, they're always extensions of your imagination. So that's what's happening. You're experiencing that. The same as you experience a dream. You experience the dream. In the dream, when you're hypnotized by it, it seems like it's real and external and out there and objective. But when you wake up, you realize, oh, it was all a play of my imagination, all being expressed through the senses. In that case, we can clearly see the senses are internalized, but nonetheless, we experience them. Same is happening now. We just don't usually notice it in the same way. That, well, it's the same as a dream in that we're hypnotized. But it's possible to wake up so that it becomes a lucid dream, which is necessary. It's you need to do that. You want to do that, because without that, then you'll continue to be hypnotized by this. And as long as you're hypnotized by it, then that's it. You're just hypnotized. You're just dreaming. endlessly dreaming, just dreaming, dreaming. Sometimes it's a good dream, sometimes it's a bad dream. Then it's a good dream, then it's a bad dream. Good dream, bad dream, good dream, bad dream. But you don't want to just be, you don't want to be having good dreams and bad dreams, regardless of whether it's good or bad. You don't want to be having the dreaming while you're actually asleep. You want to be awake. So that's what this process is. The process is so that we can actually notice what's actually going on, so that we can become conscious of it, and we can be conscious participants in that process, allowing the truth of our unique expression to emerge so that we can experience the delight of that. Should be delightful. Not just a good dream or a bad dream, but actually a delightful expression, a delightful dance. So the process that we've explored is the same process that's always going on. It's not just something that you can begin to do. It's always happening. The difference is just now you can begin to work with it consciously. So start to notice, like I suggested earlier, in the contrast, you can start to notice all of the habitual filters of the mind and identification that are there. So when we relax beneath all of that into wholeness, then we don't, all that stuff is quieted. And there's just this clarity of wholeness and happiness and contentment and joy and fulfillment. And then from that, we allow this dance of expression to emerge. But then at a certain point, the filters start to be come back online. And so then there's this kind of conflict, because the filters are not jiving fully with the natural, truthful, unique self-expression. Because the filters say, no, you can't, that's not possible, it's dangerous, it's scary, they'll laugh at you, you might die, yada, yada, yada. So normally what we do is, even if we ever have this experience of this emergence of the truthful self-expression, as soon as those filters come back online, we abandon ship of our truth and we betray ourselves, go over to our limitations, our filters. We say, oh yeah, this is reality. I better get with it and just, put my nose to the grindstone and try and grin and bear it, and all the various strategies that we have trying to eke through. But there's no through, actually. You're never going to get out the other side of it, because it's just a hypnosis. You can stay in the hypnosis as long as you do that. So the opportunity here is to stop betraying yourself, having this awareness, understanding how things are working, seeing that your mind and senses are the vehicle by which this expression comes into its fullest manifestation. So there are levels of manifestation. You can see that that's true. That's why this waking state, even though it's dreamlike in many respects, if there is a difference between this and the dream state. The dream state is foggier. It's not as solid. The waking state has more solidity. It's more differentiated. It's more of a complete expression, of complete manifestation. So there are these various stages. You notice that when you're doing a visualization, or this imagination, allowing that kind of dance to emerge, there's a dreamlike quality to it, because it's not as differentiated, it's not as clearly manifest, it's not as solid. So that's a subtler level of the manifestation process. As soon as a certain threshold is met, though, then there's these filters that are there. And if we abandon our truth and we jump ship over to the enemy, as it were, not really the enemy, but the habitual mode, then what happens is, because that pathway is so defined, then that again becomes our experience. So that's manifests at this level of the waking state. What we want to do is we want to consciously participate in that process so that we can actually choose, instead of being hypnotized and letting the mind, the filters and all that take over, we want to actually maintain our rightful position as the in a sense the witness of all of that, which allows us, because we have independence of it, allows us to begin to make changes to it. So as long as you believe, as long as you're hypnotized by you believe you are it, and it all just takes over and you just get the same old. Notice that, like most of your life has been just repetition. But through this process that I'm describing, it's possible for you then to begin to make changes when you maintain your clear sense of independence of it. When you see that you're not it, you're aware of it, then you can start to work with it. So you can start to see, okay, here are these filters, here are these beliefs. You can start to change them then. So you notice again, when you relax deeply, you touch upon that good feeling, uncaused, and start to allow that to emerge as a dance of unique self-expression, unique truthful self-expression, so that you maintain connection with that good feeling without any limitations, without any parameters around it, just staying true to it, so that you just keep feeling that lovely, wonderful feeling. And whatever emerges in your imagination, whatever that might be, it might be, again, it could be very clearly defined, or it could be very clearly or very unclearly defined, right? It could be defined in any which way, but just allow it. And as you continue with it, it starts to become more defined, but you have to be patient with it. It might not happen today. Then you'll start to see that then those filters come online and they say, oh no, that's not possible. Get real. Well, don't become hypnotized at that point. Just notice that you're independent, you're aware of it. This good feeling is here because this is telling you that this is aligned with the truth of your unique self-expression. You should feel good. Like it's just like these feelings are like signals that are just signaling you, giving you feedback, like you're either in alignment or not. What's happened for most of us, because it's how we've been conditioned, is it's so normalized to feel bad that, and most people feel totally powerless to it, that they just say, well, I guess that's just how it is. So what's the best that we can hope for? Well, let's just numb the pain. Let's ignore the pain. Let's just pretend like it's not there. We have all kinds of different strategies for dealing with it. But instead, what's possible is to actually understand it properly and say, oh, that's a signal. I'm out of alignment. Okay, let's take a step back. Come back to feeling good. Okay, now let's move forward from here. Can I maintain that good feeling, that alignment? If so, great. That tells me it's a good signal. I'm doing well. If not, then guess what? Okay, take a step back. Notice what's going on. Some filters there saying, you can't, it's not possible, you've got to do it this way. You've got to just tough it out, right? There are all these beliefs. You just grin and bear it, tough it out, grit your teeth. get through it. But what's the point of all of that? We have to question that and start to see that all of those beliefs, those filters, are they're not serving truth. They just maintain the hypnosis. And so we continue to suffer from ignorance and self-torture because nobody's doing the misery to you. You're only doing it to yourself. We only do the misery to ourselves. Nobody else could be responsible for it because it's entirely an internal process. Those bad feelings that come about, we need to slow it down, step back, come back to alignment, and then notice from there, what is this process? What's happening? Why did this emerge? What is its nature? What is actually going on there? And you can witness it and see, and then realize that you don't have to do that anymore. It's just some programming. It's just some conditioning. It's a filter that's there that you have the ability to change through awareness. By being aware of it, not identifying with it, you have the ability to change it because you can clearly start to see that's not true. Though these limitations, you don't have to accept any of them. You don't have to be reasonable at all. There's no being reasonable is just another excuse for self-torture. There are ways to misunderstand that, of course, that are still self-torture. You could say, well, I'm going to be unreasonable, but it's still another form of self-torture. What I'm talking about is a lot of the things that we consider to be reasonable are still just ways that we stifle our authentic, truthful, unique self-expression because we believe that that's impossible, or it's not safe, or it's not good, or who am I to do so, or whatever it might be. Or it's, whatever. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be a very small thing, but it's just these ways in which we betray ourselves. And so what I'm proposing, what I'm offering, a very simple process that when you do this regularly, consciously, necessarily changes your life. It has to. There's no way it cannot, because you're dealing with something that's very fundamental. It's like if certain universal laws, they exist whether you're aware of them, whether you're working with them consciously or not. Like gravity exists. If you're not conscious of it, you're still affected by it, right? If you're tripping and falling a lot because you're ignorant of gravity, so you end up suffering. You get hurt a lot as a result of that. But if you're aware of it, then you can begin to work with it consciously, intelligently. And so that's what I'm proposing here, is that you can start to actually be aware of some universal laws. So one is the universal law, which we could say is the law of the primacy of consciousness, of oneness, that everything is one and emerges from one, but that there's also that you also are a unique expression. So we want to start always by accessing that foundation of undifferentiated oneness, which gives us direct access to wholeness, completeness, peace, freedom, happiness. It's unconditional and uncaused. Then we can allow that unique, truthful self-expression to emerge, continuing to maintain that awareness and connection to that good feeling. And then here, this other universal law, the law of attention or energy. What you put your attention on, that's where the energy goes. So we can just see that we're always, this is a universal law. It's always going, it's always operating. So you can just start to notice in your life as you're going throughout your day, what is it? What does your attention go to? And you'll notice that your attention goes to exactly what you're experiencing habitually, right? You notice that your thoughts, your beliefs, your attitudes, your worries, judgments, opinions, and so forth, that's exactly what you're experiencing. It's just it's when you see it, it is it's completely changes your life. Well, when you see it and when you start to actually work with it, because you'll see, holy cow, it's true. I am experiencing exactly what I put my attention on habitually. I, my habit is to keep thinking these same thoughts, to keep having these same beliefs, to keep having these same attitudes, these same fears and worries that I just keep giving my attention to. Lo and behold, the more I give my attention to them, the more energy they get, the more real they seem. It's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when you see the truth of that, then you can actually work with it consciously, and you start to notice, okay, there's underneath all of this, there's this inherent goodness, this inherent joy, peace, freedom that is available to me because it is me. When I relax deeply enough, here it is every time reliably. I mean, when the reason that deep sleep is so restorative is because finally you're going about as close as you can get to that unconditioned, uncaused state while still being hypnotized. But now what's possible is you can actually go all the way because you're awake, not hypnotized. So you touch directly upon that source. And then you notice how wonderful it is. It's complete, it's whole. And you're meant to have that level of deep rest all the time. Think about how much energy you would have if you never were wasting your energy, because there's infinite energy here, infinite energy in potential, which is always here, completely restoring you every second when you touch upon it. So then all you have to do, it sounds so easy, just keep trusting, telling the truth about these, just these few universal laws. Just see the truth of them in action in your life. See how it's true that what you put your attention on habitually continues to get the energy, grows in your experience. So what you're believing and thinking habitually, that's what you experience is real. But all of that is also happening as a as an expression of this one energy through the mind and senses. It's all internal, just like a dream. The only difference in the waking state is, as I said, it's more distinctly, more solidly manifest, but it's the same exact process. It's still internalized. So you can see that in your own experiences as you observe it. And then as you work with this, you can change your uh, expression to be in alignment with your unique truth. And as you do so, you maintain connection to that goodness, that good feeling, that alignment, so that you feel wonderful all the time, because that should be the case. That's how you know. That's how you know that you're aligned. Sounds very easy, but in practice, you have to just keep practicing. So I've outlined for those who are here, for those who are not here, you didn't get to the absolute brilliant thing that happened, but I'll give it to you in a nutshell. Is the simple practice is relax deeply without falling asleep. Relax as deeply as possible, and then just notice this this great goodness, this great good feeling, this uh, peace, contentment, okayness that's here, that's uncaused. It's just a wonderful, good feeling that's totally uncaused. There's no cause for it at all. It's not because something has happened, just always here. And then we just begin to allow that to dance in imagination, so that good feeling can start to just, if we just invite it, it just starts to dance in our imagination without any conditions or parameters on it. We just let it dance, and however it expresses, we're just there, just allowing it, just noticing it. And it could be whatever it is. So we have to be gentle with it. It's like a delicate thing that's starting to grow. It's like a little sprout or something. So just allowing it, just giving space for it. And maybe it's a color, maybe it's a smell, maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's an image, maybe it's a whatever it is, a word, any whatever. It could be anything. But we just allow that to express. Kittens here. We allow that to express, and then just really the deal is just keep letting that express. And then as the 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 conditioned filters of the mind start to interfere at a certain point, then we just keep allowing and change, just dissolving the filters, just telling the truth, which is those are not the truth for me. I've tried that, it didn't work. It's not, it doesn't lead to happiness or success or satisfaction. It's just a recipe for unpleasantness and misery. So just let them go and just keep allowing this truthful dance in the imagination to emerge, and trusting that as you do so, this same basic process that's creating your experience all the time anyway will continue to happen, but it will now happen consciously in alignment with your unique self-expression, which will be experienced as joy. So that's it from me today. I'll just say, so just practice that. Just do that every day. If you do that every day, your life has to get better. You have to experience more happiness, more peace, more success, more satisfaction, and your life in its manifest expression will have to become aligned with your inner truth. It has to. You just have to continue to stay with that. Keep trusting in it. So that's it. I'm going to end this recording, and those who are here live, I'm happy to stay on for Q&A.